Kari Hamerschlag with the Environmental Working Group. Really happy to be here tonight. Thank you all for coming, and thanks to MOMAS for organizing this event. So the good news first, the movement for transparency and health in our food system is growing. Around the world, some 30 countries have enacted bans or restrictions on GMOs, and over 50 countries have enacted labeling laws. Just this week, as we gather tonight, thousands of people are marching to Washington to demand genetically labeled foods. And they're going to be arriving there on the 16th of October, where there'll be a rally calling for foods containing genetically modified material to be labeled so that conscious eaters can make an informed choice. And at the United Nations earlier last week, I guess, the International Federation of Organic Agricultural Movements, IFOAM, presented a declaration to the United Nations calling on its member nations to enact labeling laws. So really, the movement is growing. And in its declaration, it says, the power of consumers in rural and urban areas worldwide can put the world on a path to sustainability, provided that they have access to fully transparent information about the implications of food production for the health of their own families and for the health of all people in the natural environment. So at EWG, we agree with this simple yet profound statement. And we also agree with the 90% of Americans that believe that we should label our foods. So that is why we've joined with over 400 organizations around the country and to help lead a really exciting new campaign called the Just Label It campaign. I hope you'll go to our website, www.ewg.org, to learn more about it. Together, we believe that we can take back our government from the big chemical agricultural interests and subsidy lobby that have been dictating our GMO policy and our food policies for far too long. We believe that we can and we must pass a GMO labeling law, and we also believe that we need more stringent testing on GMO crops. So we also believe that we can and we must change the Farm Bill, which is a massive $300 billion piece of legislation that has channeled literally billions of our tax dollars into GE industrial agriculture over the past 15 years at the expense of investing in more sustainable, organic, and other forms of ecological agriculture. And so today, I think as someone who's spent 6 years living and breathing the Farm Bill, the event organizers asked me if I could connect the dots between the GMO food on your plate and the Farm Bill. So this legislation is updated in Congress every 5 to 7 years, and it's now up for debate and reauthorization in 2012, which is why I'm here talking about it. And really it should be called the Food Bill, because it has everything to do with the food that's on your plate and the food that's not on your plate. So there's 3 fundamental points that I want to talk about tonight that I'll elaborate on in a little bit more detail. The first is that Farm Bill investments in food production are totally out of step with the nutritional and health needs of our country. So on the one hand, we're told that we should fill half of our plates with fruits and vegetables, and that's mostly non-GMO food. Yet, just a tiny fraction of the Farm Bill is dedicated to promoting the production and consumption of these healthy foods. A much larger amount of investment goes into food production of chemical-dependent GMO industrial agriculture that provides raw materials for unhealthy junk food, industrially processed meat, and fuel for our car tanks. Second, the energy-intensive chemical, industrial, and GE farming systems that are supported with our tax dollars are wreaking havoc on our environment. These farming systems are depleting our soils at rapid rates. They're causing greenhouse gas emissions. They're using large amounts of pesticides and fertilizer that end up in polluting our water. To talk specifically about GMOs, after 14 years of commercialization and millions of dollars in research, the biotech industry has yet to deliver on its promises for drought-resistant, high-yield seeds that reduce the chemical footprint of agriculture. Totally broken promises. In fact, the opposite has happened. The pesticide applications have increased. With the rise of superweeds, we see a reduced yield in soybeans. Reduced yield in production, and GMOs are threatening to contaminate our organic food supply. Also, companies like Monsanto, DuPont, and Syngenta are making billions of profits as they continue to increase seed prices and have an increasingly tight grip on our food supply. The third issue that I want to talk more about is, and this is perhaps the most important thing, is that the solution to this crisis, and really it is a crisis, will require a massive citizen effort that we're beginning to see take hold. And that includes each and every one of you to act as a counterweight to the powerful agricultural lobby, to convince our policymakers to enact labeling and to shift subsidies from large-scale genetically engineered agriculture into programs that will help farmers transition to sustainable, organic, diverse, and local food production systems that can provide an accessible, affordable, and environmentally sound, abundant supply of real food. You know, that's more fruits and vegetables, organic grains, sustainable meat produced without antibiotics, hormones, GMO feed, etc. So let's look at the skewed priorities in the Farm Bill. At EWG, we believe in following the money. So we've been tracking U.S. farm subsidies for the past 15 years, and to prepare this talk, I ran the numbers on just the GMO portion of American crops, which you can see has grown significantly. And in my analysis, I found that over the last 10 years, we've been subsidizing GMO crops, primarily corn, soybean, and cotton, to the tune of $65 billion. And this is actually, we've actually provided even more support. That's just direct subsidies. So we decided to compare the GE crop subsidies with fruits, nuts, and vegetables, you know, the food that you're supposed to be eating more of. And you can see we spent $18.5 billion just in the last 3 years. This is just 2008 to 2010. On GE crop subsidies, mostly for corn, soybean, and cotton, and just $2.2 billion of support for fruit, nuts, and vegetables. Now, is it a coincidence that we invest so little in supporting fruits and vegetables, and that we're only, as a nation, 4% of us are getting a recommended allowance of fruits and vegetables? I don't think so. Or that we're eating way more of the GE foods that are highly subsidized? So let's just take meat and junk food as examples quickly. So meat first. So nearly half of our subsidized corn and soybean goes into producing meat that we all eat too much of, really. In the US, we eat 60% more than Europeans, and these are with serious health consequences. 10% of the subsidies are going into ingredients that make up the junk food. This excessive consumption of junk food and meat is causing a rise in all kinds of diet-related diseases, and it's linked to heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and stroke. And according to the Produce for Better Health Foundation, it's costing our nation $150 billion a year. We're not saying that subsidies are the cause of these diseases. What we're saying is that it's not a wise public investment to invest billions of tax dollar money to subsidize the inputs for unhealthy food, while at the same time greatly underinvesting in the fruits and vegetables, which we know could actually keep us healthy and save us billions. In fact, if everyone filled half their plates with fruits and vegetables, we'd save $30 billion in medical care, we'd reduce our exposure to GMOs, and we'd also reduce the risk of many diseases. We just need a health-oriented farm bill to help us get there. So I thought I would look really quickly at compare kind of the investment in GE crop subsidies in organic agriculture. You can see that it's a very tiny sum of money that we put into the organic forms of production, which really are the kinds of farming systems that we need more of. Organic farming prohibits the use of synthetic chemicals and pesticides, and it delivers all kinds of environmental benefits. Healthier carbon-rich soil, fewer chemicals, greater biodiversity, habitat protection, and is it a coincidence that we spend so little on organic and it's so expensive for us to consume? I don't think so. So I just want to switch gears and talk specifically about the environmental impacts of GMOs. You've heard a little bit about the increased use of glyphosate. One of the great promises and industry selling points for GMOs was the environmental benefit of reduced pesticide usage. That was really one of the great promises. But as you can see from this graph, the opposite has occurred. In fact, there's been a marked increase in the use of pesticides. We've seen, according to Chuck Benbrook from the Organic Center, he did a really important study a couple of years ago and found that, in fact, farmers have used 318 million more pounds of pesticides over the last 13 years than they would have if they had planted conventional seeds. They also are using 26% more pounds of pesticides per acre than acres planted to conventional varieties. A bigger issue right now is the rise of superweeds that are resistant to Roundup Ready. We've got more than 10 superweeds on 14 million acres in 26 states. You can see this picture here of a pigweed that just one plant can produce 500,000 seeds. huge problem. Why is this such a problem? These superweeds are threatening the yields, these great yields that we're supposed to see of Roundup-ready crops, and the need to get these superweeds under control is driving farmers to both increase their use of Roundup-ready and also increase the use of even more toxic herbicides, like paraquat and 2,4-D, which is the chemical used in the Vietnam War defoliant Agent Orange. So more toxic chemicals bring higher risk of birth defects and other reproductive problems, more severe impacts on aquatic ecosystems, and much more frequent instances of herbicides spreading damage to nearby crops and plants. What has the industry response been? Well, the rise of superweeds is seen as a new market and profit opportunity for the seed and pesticide industries. In fact, don't worry, says Monsanto CEO. The cavalry is coming. Well, what does he mean by the cavalry? Well, the cavalry is in the form of new research and development to create these new GE seeds that can tolerate more of the Roundup, more of the Roundup ready, and new, more toxic chemicals. And DuPont and Syngenta stand to gain a lot, billions, in additional profit from the sale of these seeds. So Chuck Benbrook from the Organic Center said, addressing this rapidly emerging problem of resistant weeds in this way makes as much sense as pouring gasoline on a fire in the hope of snuffing out the flames. And he's absolutely right. If we allow GE crops to continue in this fashion, we're just going to be using 2 to 3 times more herbicides in the next several years. And you can just imagine this, this treadmill will just continue as industry will develop more resistant strains of GE seeds, and it will just go on forever, and we're going to be increasing contamination in our environment. So we've got a serious problem. But we also have, from this, what I think is a crisis, is an opportunity. Many farmers are fed up, and they're looking for alternatives. I've talked about the increasing cost and challenge of dealing with superweeds, the poor yields, the high cost of GMO seeds. Sometimes 10 times as much are invested. Right now, we are reaping many negative dividends from the billions of dollars that we've plowed into this form of agriculture. And we can do so much better with our money. So just as there's a tipping point for changing the market, I believe there's a tipping point for changing policy. All over the country, the growing food movement is demanding change, and we're just seeing an incredible rise of people organizing all over the country around food, which is really exciting. And so in addition to voting with your fork and doing what you can to purchase the healthiest food for your kids and demand labeling, I also hope that you'll be inspired to take action on the Farm Bill. We are asking Californians to stand up with us to call on our legislators, all 55 of them. We have a powerful state delegation to demand a Farm Bill that invests our taxpayer money where we need it most. Increased access to healthy food, more promotion of fruits, nuts, and vegetables, organic agriculture, beginning farmers, because our farmers are getting older, conservation, and research. Very important. These programs are all at risk in the super committee process, which I'm sure some of you have heard about. They always raid the conservation budget first. That's where they always go. They don't go to the subsidies, they go to the conservation budget. And so we are really working hard to get our legislators to advocate for these priorities over the subsidies right now. And I believe that if enough policymakers hear from you and thousands of others around the country, then we can begin to really turn this shipwreck around and force them to invest our money where we know it will do much, much more good. So please join us and go to our website, ewg.org, and sign on to the Farm Bill petition. The email address is on there, or the web address is on there. And also we have a mailing list that's going to be going around the room if you want to sign up to get our updates. We'd love to stay in touch with you as we really try to get the California delegation to stand up for a much healthier, more sustainable farm.